Hello, thank you. As was just mentioned, I'm Alex Kvamme, co-founder and CEO of Pathlight. We build software to help leading customer-facing teams manage their performance, and our number one goal is every single person understanding how they're doing against their KPIs so that they can manage and improve their own performance. And I'm joined with one of our customers and one of my friends, Matt Rogers, who's the VP of Market Development. And I'm pretty excited to do this fireside chat with Matt because Matt has built a career on inside sales and sales development. Started off at Dell, then spent a decade at Microsoft standing up the early Azure sales and sales development teams and doing many other things. And then went to Google and led ISV for Google Cloud. And now he's the VP of Market Development at Twilio. He runs an org of about 400 sellers across a variety of different roles, inside sales, sales development, partner, and others. And as I said, he's built a career and he's seen the progression of inside sales and sales development for many years. So Matt, thank you for coming.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
Matt's also a Austin native. So he dropped his daughter off at school and came right over, so it was nice and convenient. So I want to start with a hopefully a juicy headline, and then we can kind of back out of it, right? Starting this quarter, Twilio made a drastic strategic shift in their sales development organization from quantity to quality. They shrunk territories, they shrunk quotas, and they instituted a move from, what's the term you use? Batch and blast to highly personalized emails and outreach in general. And I think we've seen over the last year or so a decrease in the effectiveness of the old way of doing things, of batch and blast. And this is the first thing I want to kind of touch on, Matt, is maybe what led you to making this realization, and then let's actually talk about the decision that you made, and then the effects of that.
Sure. Yeah. There were a number of factors that went into it. Part of it is this job's just a lot harder than it used to be. So, everything felt a lot easier in this space 9-12 months ago. And as we were watching your reply rates going down, conversion rates going down, it's like, we've got to try something different. We have to work differently than we do today. And we were getting feedback from our AEs and sales teams that the leads that we were producing weren't converting well enough. And so we had pretty aggressive quotas, and SDRs figured out how to be successful in that. And so we booked a lot of meetings, and we're not seeing the conversion rate to pipeline that we wanted to see. So there were multiple factors there, as we watched the economy change, and then thinking, some of this AE feedback probably has merit. And if we want to get to a point where we're having better leads and better conversations with our AEs, we got to scale back the quantity and ramp up the quality of these interactions. And so it was a big bet for us to shrink territories and having reps focus on a smaller number of accounts. And we also reduced their quotas as part of that. Because we want them to do a better job personalizing that outreach, and overall we've seen tremendous improvement there.
So yeah, let's talk about that improvement, and first actually maybe let's just double click into the more specific changes that you're rolling out right now. Yeah. How are you instructing your reps to engage with customers now?
Yeah, so much of the conversation right now is around personalization of messaging. Like, we are doing tons of training in that space. We started off with just generally a messaging refresh. As we watched some of the reply rates come down and some of the conversion rate comes down, we need to just go back through all of our messaging again and make sure it's still relevant for the economy that we're in today. And so that's a little harder to do when everyone's blowing out quotas and everyone's feeling really flush. And so as hard as the downturn is, I think it's actually going to make us better in a lot of ways. It's making us work harder and work a lot smarter than we had in the past. So we went through this huge messaging refresh and amped up the story that we could tell around the economic impact of what we do. And we tested different messages, and we refined that until we found what the most effective is going to be in terms of response rates, and we started scaling that across the team. And then from there, we've done a ton of training on personalization. And it's one thing to train people to use the tools. It's another to really start to understand different buyers. And for Twilio, we've got multiple audiences that we touch. We touch CMOs, we touch contact center buyers, we touch technology buyers. And so we did a lot of training with our reps where they would hear from that kind of buyer. And what are the things they think about and what connects with them? And then how do you apply what we do to the kind of problems that they're trying to solve? And so it's been a combination of how do we get better messaging, how do we train reps to speak the language of our customers and apply what Twilio does to the problems they're trying to solve.
And this is, again, I think it's, we've stated some of these changes in a period of minutes, but these are monumental changes, not only for the Twilio organization, but we're in many ways we feel like we're at the forefront of innovation here in this space, because this isn't like we're taking a 10-rep SDR team and telling them to do more personalization. These are hundreds of folks at scale at a public company, and we're leveraging, or you guys are leveraging kind of the macroeconomic climate to make a very big change. Yeah. And that's not only, that change isn't just happening at the rep level. You're also having to retrain and re-onboard effectively the management layers as well. Talk a little bit about those challenges.
Yeah, our team has expanded quite a bit. So it's a large team today, and so between the expansion and backfills of current people, a huge part of what we focus on is onboarding. And how do we get a rep to productivity as quickly as possible? How do we get a manager to productivity as quickly as possible? It's particularly the managers. There's a multiplier effect for a manager who's going to coach and train 8 to 12 different reps at a time. And so we spend a lot of time with them of how to get them up to speed with our systems and processes and how to look at the metrics of the business and then how to coach reps effectively.
One of the great things that has come out of our partnership, we've been working with Twilio for 2+ years, and we started before you were there, and there was maybe 10 or 20 SDRs, and now there are hundreds. And we've worked through quite a few strategic changes. And of course, one of the main ways that Twilio leverages Pathlight is ensuring that every single person in this organization has a single pane of glass into their performance. Well, one of the biggest things that are happening in this change is the metrics that we're looking at, and the goals that we're setting are changing. How do you think about ensuring that, okay, we've got the strategic shift, how do we update our systems? How do we update our operational processes to ensure that shift actually takes?
Yeah, it's been a big multiplier for performance on our team. We had, in the early days, a lot of hope casting with reps of, what's your goal for the week and how do you think you're going to get there? And now we have all of this very metriced by team. And so for our digital sales team, where we're working with new customers coming in through our funnel, we have multiple metrics we look at that tell us the progress that customer's making getting started with Twilio. And then at a rep level, we're able to surface them. These are the customers you need to engage, and this is where they are in their journey, and this is what you should do with them. On our inbound team, we're looking at the lead flow coming in. We're qualifying leads and how quickly we're responding at our SLA, and then how quickly that's making it into pipeline with AEs. And on the outbound teams, we're looking at prospects added to sequences and the velocity of outreach and the response rates of different sequences that we're using, and then the conversion of pipeline with AEs. So for each of these teams, we've got multiple metrics that we look at a rep level. And so we can sit down with a rep and very quickly diagnose your gap to quota is either at the early stage of this, where we need to talk about productivity and how you're using your time and how do you think about your day and how quickly we're getting to leads and how to prioritize leads. In some cases, it's really far up the funnel, and we have reps that don't know how to engage with AEs or don't know how to work with customers as effectively as we could, and we coach there. And so the data helps us do that. And so in all of our manager 101s, they've got a dashboard that they're looking at with the rep, with metrics that we train everyone around. And we're able to diagnose where to coach very quickly, and it's very transparent for everyone in the organization.
So this is one of the things I think that Twilio does very well, which is leaning on that operational structure in order to empower such large strategic change. But again, I mean, the gravity of this change is pretty enormous. The way that you have been able to roll out this change and changes in the past is ensuring that every manager's on the same page, the directors are on the same page, everyone's got a view, and that view reflects your priorities and leadership's priorities. And if those priorities change, those things can cascade down. And so in Q4, as you've made this big change, the reps, the managers, the directors, they all have a view of their updated performance metrics.
That's right. And we're able to coach around that. So as we bring new managers into the organization, one thing that's been helpful is how quickly we can get them ramped to productivity. It's like this is the path to success for your rep. Like if your rep does X, Y, Z, which we have instrumented at each stage, then they're going to beat their quota. And here's how to coach when they're off in each one of these metrics. And so managers come in and they've typically done this before at another company, but they don't know our story and they don't know our process. And so these kind of tools and these dashboards make them productive really quick in terms of their ability to coach, and particularly through a period of transition and change.
I think that's one of the key takeaways that we've seen in our partnership with Twilio is truly the power of empowering the manager and the ability, that being a core element of rolling out key operational change. I think we speak to companies all the time that are looking to make a shift like this. I want to move from quantity to quality. I want to make these big changes. But the how we do it and over what timeline is also the biggest question, right? Yeah. So maybe one of the key takeaways there, first, obviously operationalizing that and making that a very data-driven way of measuring that change, but also really focusing on the manager. And especially for an organization at your size, an organization that's scaling is not just the manager's steady state, but onboarding that manager. Right. Being a key kind of lever to work on to improve the effectiveness of the organization.
Yeah, it's been helpful for just as recruiting conversations with reps. As we come into the company, like we talk a lot about our culture and what we see as this large market opportunity that we get to go pursue. But part of what we can tell them is we know how to make you successful in this job. And we've got clear metrics across every stage of how we look at the business that we can sit down on a real-time dashboard with you and talk about how to be great at what you do. And we have transparency on those metrics across the whole team. Everybody can see it. And we know how to coach around that. So we can very quickly help a rep be productive. And that's helpful as part of the selling to the rep of why they should join our team is we know how to make you successful here. And as managers come in, we know how to make you a successful manager in a new system quickly.
I've heard stories of from our users of folks in these interviews pulling up Pathlight and saying like exactly that, which is this is when you join, like you're going to get a single pane of glass, and we're all going to be on the same page.
That's right.
Right, we're all going to be able to see the same thing. And even at the rep level as well, right? At the end of the day, I mean, you've built your career around working and leading to success folks who are early in their careers, right? They're maybe their first time selling or their first time in sales or their second time. Perhaps we could pivot to that really quickly on onboarding those folks as well. I'm assuming some of the stuff still applies, but how how do you think about onboarding reps at scale so effectively?
We've been through several different models, and it kind of depends on the time. Like we're about to hire a new batch we're going to expand the team, and so when we do that, like we'll have some dedicated people just for onboarding, and that's a bit of a luxury. Like when you can bring a big class in or a big group in all at once. Most of our reps over time get onboarded into a team that's already moving, and so like the fastest way for get them onboarded well. Once you get them out of training, is that manager knows how to coach them. And so we spend lots of time with our managers, like unpacking each stage of the funnel and how to look at that dashboard with the rep. And is it, are they off at the early stage? Are they off at the late stage? Like how do we make them effective at each stage of the funnel. And that's where we put most of our time, is like, how do we make managers great coaches and make them as effective as possible?
One of the features in Pathlight that I think Twilio might leverage more than almost any of our other customers is our one-on-ones feature, because I think it's exactly right. That's the encapsulation of a data-driven one-on-one, is let's get all the metrics into one place, snapshotted, and then let's have a very detailed coaching conversation on each of those metrics. Let's put together a plan in place on how to improve them if they need improvement. Like that ability to do, I mean, obviously the functionality is there, but we've really seen Twilio lean into that.
Yeah, the great leaders, like there's a combination of art and science to it. And so there's definitely some of the art of how do you motivate a rep, how do you unpack, what holds them back from stretching a little further, or, overcoming whatever fears they're dealing with and helping them see a career path. So there's a lot of art to being a great manager. And I just want to make sure they also have the science side of it, that they know how to diagnose with the rep in a very transparent way. Like, this is your path to success. If you do X, Y, Z, and we've got metrics across each stage of it, you're going to be successful in this role. And I think these kind of tools give us a way to do both. And I think traditionally, a lot of sales has oriented only around the art side of it, but you can have a huge impact if you get deep in the data and have clear paths to success for your reps.
So the kind of pyramid that we're building is, in order to empower, enable the strategic changes that are necessary to be successful in changing environments like what we're having right now, we need to make sure that managers are empowered and they're very data-driven, and they've got the art and the science, and they can onboard reps quickly. They can onboard themselves quickly. What do you, as you look towards the next 12 months or the next 24 months, and I want to ask next 24 months because
who knows?
Who knows? But as you look for the next 12 months, you've made this kind of big strategic change. What else is on the horizon or the roadmap, or what else are you thinking about?
Well, I think a lot of our company specifically, which I also think is going to apply to many others, like we're taking a hard look at cost of sales right now. And in a very cash-rich environment where everyone's got a lot of flexibility on how you build, we built a very heavy AE organization. And so part of what we're looking at right now is how do we do more with inside sales and more with a scale operation. Twilio has 280,000 active customers. We're onboarding tens of thousands of new trials every month that we've got to qualify and then get into some kind of stage of production with us. And most of what we've done historically has been with AEs. And so most of our 280,000 active customers had an AE assigned. And it's a very, if you got the cash, it's a very effective way to do it. It's very high touch, and your customers feel like they've got a dedicated contact they can go to. But it's a very expensive model to run. And so part of what we're looking at is how do we do more with these scale operations for the vast majority of our customers. And we have our AEs on our highest potential, highest revenue customers. So we're scaling up this digital engagement. We're focusing more on the typical product-led growth metrics of how do you efficiently onboard customers and then apply human touch where we know we can have the biggest impact and not just automatically throwing a human into every touch that a customer has with us. And I think that's, when I talk to friends in other companies, a lot of these companies are going through that transition right now of how do I build more of a scale operation, particularly on the acquisition side or at the masses of customers you're going to manage at that scale versus your really large enterprise accounts.
So a lot of what we're talking about here is, again, move from quantity to quality, really look at cost of sale, ensure that the rep account relationship is high quality, high potential. One thing that I did wanted to harken back to is, so as Twilio has constricted territories and quotas and moved towards quality, we've talked a lot about data-driven management of performance. But how are you thinking about starting to actually manage quality?
Well, this is something I want to get better at, frankly. So we have really good data around activities. And so we can lay out that path for the rep of what you need to do to be productive and help coach at different stages. What we can't see as much right now is the quality of those interactions. And so we look at things like, we call it a tech score, but it's basically like an NSAT score of engagements with individual reps. But we typically only hear from customers when something goes wrong. And so we need to get better at being able to score emails and figure out, is this the most effective outreach that I could be doing with this customer? And so today, as we're focusing a lot more on personalization with SDRs, we're looking at emails in a very manual way today with managers going through a sequence with the rep and which ones worked and which ones didn't. I'd love to figure out how to do that in a more automated, scalable way than we're doing today. I think we've had a very heavy focus on activity and less at the quality of those activities.
I think you and I were talking about this earlier, but I agree. I think that's a really interesting opportunity in the future for sales and sales development organizations. Customer support organizations have been grading the quality of interactions for 10 plus years now. And I think what we're starting to see is some interest or movement towards a more structured approach of measuring and analyzing the quality of these sales interactions.
Right.
Because right now it's very ad hoc, right? It's like a manager, let's pull up your emails, let's pull up a sales call, I'm going to listen to it, I'm going to give you some feedback according to my experience. And that's also just not going to leave this room like you don't have much transparency into that as well.
Not as much as I want.
Yeah.
And particularly with our really strong focus on personalization today and the quality of interaction that we have with customers, we know how to train for that. We know how to do it on a one-on-one basis as we look at coaching with the rep. I'd love to be able to dashboard that more and be able to have quicker insight into who needs more help in a particular area. It's something we're still working on. One of the biggest changes we've made this quarter is the volume of email being high is red for us now. That used to be a green. It's how much activity can it get done in a week? Now it's much more, if you're sending too many emails, you're spamming people. It's not a great customer experience. We know it doesn't convert well on the back end. So we're now, volume is red. We want to get better at the quality of how we're engaging with the customer.
I know we're just about at time. We might have time for one question for Matt or two if someone has a burning question. Sir.
Most everything is instrumented at the core with Salesforce and outreach. We do use Pathlight, as I mentioned, for coaching and rep 101s where we got metrics by rep and manager. We also run a lot of experiments with different tools. So we're doing a lot with Lavender right now because we're focusing a lot on personalization and messages. It's quite good at that. And then we're looking at a number of different tools that help with personalization. The amount of research that a rep has to do today to find a compelling data points from company filings or from job postings or what you can glean from a website. We're going through several different tools right now to make reps more efficient in that space.
One more.
You mentioned a lot of the time being spent managing and who's spending the time enable and a lot of time who's training up your men better area?
For us, it's a combination of teams, like you mentioned. We do have enablement teams, and we think of that mostly for understanding the basics of our tools and our products. From there, a lot of it's just within the team, and the people that have been in the team for a while. We assign a buddy to every new manager who comes in. A lot of teams we found are really good at that at a rep level, but managers need buddies too. And so it helps on a lot of levels, particularly for making sure people understand how to work in our culture. We have a very coaching-heavy culture versus command and control structure, and find it's a lot more motivating for people and a lot better way to work, but it's not the way most people have run teams in the past. So a lot of that coaching we do within our own team.
Great. Okay, well, thank you, Matt. Thank you for your time.
Thanks,
and thank you, everyone. I didn't realize they were going to give your email address out, but connect with him on LinkedIn. You can email me. And then if you want to learn more about Pathlight, we've got a booth in the back. But thank you, Tenbound.
Thanks.
Thank you.